Name the compound which moves and gives us milk. Monocalcium oxygen, calcium oxide, calcium oxygen, calcium monoxide. So we know that this is an ionic compound because it's a metal bonded to a nonmetal. So we're going to reject any prefixes because that has to do with molecular nomenclature as opposed to ionic nomenclature. So is it calcium oxide or calcium oxygen? It's oxide because we have calcium, the metal, followed by the nonmetal where we drop the suffix and we add IDE. How many valence electrons did calcium gain or lose? Did it lose 1, lose 2, gain 1, or gain 2? So if we look at calcium on the periodic table, it's in group 2. And it wants to be like a noble gas, where it has a full octet of 8 valence electrons. Now, it has 2 valence electrons because it's in group 2, so it can either gain 6 to get to 8, or it can lose the 2 that it has to bump down to the 8 within the ring below. So it's going to lose 2 to acquire a positive 2 charge. MgX2. What is this mystery X element? And how can we use the information of this, especially Mg, to figure this out? Magnesium is also in group 2, so it's going to form a positive 2 charge because it loses 2 electrons, 2 valence electrons. We have a positive bonded to a negative, so beryllium cannot be the answer because beryllium is also in group 2, so it would become a positively charged ion. We know that magnesium has a positive 2 charge. That's its ionic charge. And there's only one of them in the compound, so its overall contribution of charge is the same. And ionic compounds have to be 0 overall, so the overall contribution of charge of each ions, of each elements, have to be equal and opposite. So the X element has to contribute something that is -2 overall. And there's 2 of them in the compound. So that means that the charge of the individual ion has to be half that. So it's going to be -1. In other words, it had to have gained 1 electron to acquire a -1 charge. And that is where group 7 comes into play, because all that it needs to do is gain 1 valence electron, and it's electronically just like the noble gases because it acquires an octet. And fluorine is the only group 7 element that is presented. So that's the answer.